In 1945, a sphere of plutonium-gallium alloy was forged at Los Alamos, weighing 6.2 kilograms and measuring 89 millimeters in diameter. It was built to be the third atomic bomb, a device intended for deployment against Japan. The core was prepared for shipment to the Pacific Theater, scheduled to be ready by mid-August. Its components were expected to leave New Mexico on August 12 or 13, with delivery anticipated by August 17 or 18. Japan surrendered on August 15 before the core could be delivered. The bomb was no longer needed for war, but the core remained at Los Alamos for further testing and potential future use. Scientists began studying how close the core was to criticality. They used neutron reflectors to push it toward a chain reaction, carefully measuring how much reflection brought it to the edge. Harry Daghlian worked late that night on August 21, 1945, conducting experiments alone. A security guard sat nearby, 10 feet away, observing quietly as Daghlian stacked tungsten carbide bricks around the core. He was adding bricks incrementally, each one reflecting more neutrons back into the core. The neutron counters clicked faster with each layer, signaling increasing reactivity. As he moved the final brick into position, his hand slipped. The brick fell directly onto the top of the assembly, fully enclosing the core in reflective material. The core went instantly supercritical. A flash of blue light filled the room, followed by a wave of heat. Neutron radiation surged through the space. Daghlian reacted immediately, knocking the brick off with his hand, but the exposure had already occurred. He felt a sour taste in his mouth and a burning sensation in his fingers. He staggered away, realizing the severity of what had happened. Within minutes, nausea set in. He was taken to the base hospital, where doctors began monitoring his condition. Estimates later suggested he received 510 rem of neutron radiation. The dose damaged cells throughout his body, especially in the bone marrow and gastrointestinal tract. His sister-mother arrived to care for him. Over the next 25 days, he suffered severe diarrhea, reduced urine output, swelling, and blistering. His organs began to fail. He fell into a coma and died on September 15, 1945. He was the first known fatality from a criticality accident, and the core that killed him remained at Los Alamos. After Daghlian's death, safety protocols were reviewed. Rules were established requiring 2 people present during such experiments, audible neutron alarms, and contingency plans. Despite new guidelines, hands-on testing continued. Slotin, a physicist from Winnipeg, took over the criticality experiments using the same plutonium core. Slotin developed a method using 2 hemispherical beryllium shells. He manually held the upper shell in place with his left hand while adjusting the gap with a screwdriver. The gap allowed neutrons to escape. Closing it completely would reflect too many neutrons back, risking prompt criticality. Shims were supposed to maintain the gap, but Slotin did not use them. He performed this test nearly a dozen times, often with observers watching. Colleagues called it tickling the dragon's tail, a phrase attributed to Richard Feynman. Enrico Fermi warned Slotin and others they would be dead within a year if they kept working this way. The risk was known, but the practice continued. On May 21, 1946, Slotin conducted a demonstration for Alvin C. Graves and 6 others. He was showing the technique before leaving Los Alamos for a teaching position. He grasped the upper beryllium hemisphere through a thumb hole. With his other hand, he used a screwdriver to control the separation between the halves. The neutron counters ticked steadily as the gap narrowed. Everyone in the room watched silently, aware of the danger but trusting Slotin's experience. At 3:20 p.m., the screwdriver slipped outward by a fraction of an inch. The upper shell dropped fully into place, enclosing the core in neutron-reflective beryllium. The core went prompt critical. A burst of hard radiation erupted. A blue flash filled the room, and those present felt a wave of heat on their skin. Slotin reacted instantly, twisting his wrist and flipping the upper shell off the assembly. He broke the reflection in about half a second, halting the chain reaction. He had already absorbed a lethal dose, 1,000 rad of neutron radiation and 114 rad of gamma radiation. His body blocked much of the radiation from reaching the others. He turned to the group and said quietly, "Well, that does it." He knew he was going to die. He began sketching the room layout to help estimate others' exposures. He vomited shortly after leaving the building. Acute radiation syndrome had begun. His colleagues rushed him to the hospital, but the damage was irreversible. Over the next 9 days, Slotin suffered massive blisters, intestinal paralysis, gangrene, and confusion. His parents arrived from Winnipeg, joining him in his final hours. He slipped into a coma and died at 11 a.m. on May 30, 1946. He was 35 years old. His burial took place in Winnipeg on June 2. Alvin C. Graves, standing closest behind Slotin, received a high but non-lethal dose. He was partially shielded by Slotin's body and hospitalized for several weeks. Graves survived, though he developed chronic neurological and vision problems. He died 19 years later at age 55 from heart failure. Samuel Klein and Dwight Young also suffered acute radiation sickness. Young recovered, but later died at 83 from aplastic anemia and infection. Marion Cieslicki developed leukemia and died 19 years later at 42. The connection between these deaths and radiation exposure remained uncertain. Film badges were locked 100 feet away and not worn during the accident. Slotin asked for them to be placed on the assembly afterward, but the data was useless. Scientists relied on sodium activation in blood and urine to estimate doses. The calculated Slotin received 880 remian equivalent gamma dose, Graves 290 rem. The core was originally named Rufus. After 2 fatal accidents, it became known as the Demon Core, a name reflecting its deadly history. Hands-on criticality experiments ended immediately. Remote-controlled machines were designed so all personnel could stay a quarter-mile away during tests. The core was intended for Operation Crossroads, a nuclear test series at Bikini Atoll. Slotin's experiment was meant to be its final check before detonation. After the accident, the core needed time to cool. It was rescheduled for a 3rd test, provisionally named Charlie, but that test was canceled. The underwater Baker test produced unexpected radioactivity. Target ships could not be decontaminated, so further testing was abandoned. The Demon Core was melted down in summer 1946. Its plutonium-gallium material was recycled into other cores for future weapons. Slotin was praised by the U.S. government for his quick action, which saved others. His death was preventable, yet he ignored safety protocols. Some physicists viewed his behavior as reckless. Others saw him as a skilled expert who pushed boundaries to advance understanding. The blue glow seen during criticality events results from ionized air fluorescence. It is not Cherenkov radiation, though both produce blue light. Witnesses reported feeling heat, possibly due to infrared emissions from excited nitrogen and oxygen in the air. The sensation may also have been psychosomatic. Criticality accidents released neutron and gamma radiation. Neutron doses were hard to measure in 1946 because dosimeters couldn't detect them accurately. Delayed neutrons help stabilize reactors. In prompt critical excursions, only fast neutrons drive the chain reaction, causing rapid energy release. The Demon Core was part of a reflected metal system. These configurations are especially sensitive to geometry changes caused by reflector placement. 60 known criticality accidents occurred between 1945 and 1999. 21 fatalities resulted, 7 in the United States. Process accidents happen outside reactors, often during handling. They involve unintended accumulation of fissile material in unsafe conditions. Reactor accidents occur during maintenance or fuel loading. Chernobyl was a criticality accident, but classified as a meltdown due to core destruction. The term critical excursion describes an uncontrolled chain reaction. It differs from a nuclear explosion, which requires precise detonation timing. Each fission releases about 2.5 neutrons. One must trigger another fission to sustain the chain. More than one leads to exponential growth. Prompt neutrons appear microseconds after fission. Delayed neutrons emerge seconds later, allowing time to adjust reactor control. The magic MERV mnemonic lists factors affecting criticality, mass, absorption, geometry, interaction, concentration, moderation, enrichment, reflection, volume.